Hello, everybody, and welcome to my weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan, this covering the week of September 11th to the 17th of 2017. This week we've had a lot of movement on the list again, but some kind of interesting developments. Of the top 10 last week, only 2 titles remain, but funny enough, 2 titles that had slipped off of the top 10 list have returned. So kind of an interesting bag. I'm kind of curious if maybe there was sort of a slower week this week and 2 titles just kind of surged for some reason. It's kind of hard to tell. These are the times where I wish I could read the language natively so I could see a little bit more into the analysis. I'm just going by the numbers. But let's get right into the list, and then you can give me your thoughts of what you think might have happened in the comments down below. At number 10, with 4,622 copies sold, we have Konosuba volume number 12. So one of the ones that's making a comeback. It did very well on the list for a couple of weeks there, dropped off for a bit, and now has returned. Of course, Konosuba, we have the anime, the manga, and the light novel series all being released officially in English. The light novel is being released by Yen On. Currently 3 volumes are available, and I've read and reviewed all 3 and loved them, so not too surprised that this series is doing well. At number 9, with 4,764 volumes sold in its first week of release, Sengoku Komachi Kuroutan, volume number 6, or it's also known as the Chronicles of the Hardships of Komachi in the Sengoku era. There's no English license for this one. I didn't see anything about a manga or an anime. Clearly, even if they do exist, they're not available in English at this point. One fateful day, a girl time-slipped into the Sengoku era. It was an abrupt enough event to be dubbed God's whim, done to sate hellish boredom. The girl has no power to change the world. She was a very ordinary, common, and plain girl that could be found anywhere. And that girl can do no more than a single thing: survive the Sengoku era. That's all. So, kind of an isekai, but not really. This one, another genre that I have seen a couple of times in anime as well as in live-action Japanese shows and in manga, character time-slipping. So not actually going to another world, but just going into our past. And again, what's kind of cool about those type of stories is that typically the only power that the individual has is their own personal knowledge of history, which can be really fun and kind of interesting. And I liked seeing how, I mean, we've had some of these shows, like type of stories and numerous, it's across the board, it's in there. I always like those kind of shows because if you have a really strong and decent author who does their homework, seeing how they're able to insert their original character in historical events in a way that's plausible is really cool. And just, it's a whole other different level of imagination, I think, than just creating a fantasy world or what have you. At number 8, with 4,836 copies sold, we have Uchiage Hanabi, Shita kara Miru ka, Yoko kara Miru. So this one is also known as Fireworks Should We See It from the Side or the Bottom. This was one that was on the list for a couple of weeks when I started these videos. It is the light novel adaptation of the animated film. The animated film itself being an adaptation of a live-action film from a number of years ago. The film opened in mid-August, and I'd seen some sort of mixed reactions online, but apparently people are still somewhat interested in the light novel because not only is it back in the top 10, but it's pretty solidly at number 8. So, yeah, I mean, you can interpret that any way you like. It's kind of interesting to me, though, that it's taken a little bit longer since the movie released for this to come back into the top 10. Or maybe, as I said, it's just that this week had fewer releases, so it kind of allowed some lesser titles to kind of come back up. I don't mean lesser like they're not as good. I just mean lesser in terms of sales. But yeah, so no, that's the last one that's going to be a return to this list. Everything else, we have the 2 volumes, of course, from last week that I said have managed to hang on to this week. At least one of them, I'm sure, will be no surprise to any of you, but all the other ones are new to the list this week. At number 7, with 5,434 copies sold, this is one of our 2 returners from last week, and it is Wolf and Parchment volume number 3. So, of course, the sequel to Spice and Wolf. Talked a bit about this a bit last week. Yen On has licensed the light novel series, and they're releasing the first volume November 14th of 2017. So not too long now, about a month and a half, 2 months to go, and then we'll be starting in there. Volume 3 only released in Japan, so one that we're really not that far behind. At number 6, with 5,613 copies sold, we have volume number 3 of 29 to JK. Now, there is no English license for this series. There is an anime, no, sorry, not an anime, there's a manga as well. The manga, as far as I can tell, has not been licensed either. There's really not a lot of information on this series, even though it seems to be kind of popular-ish. It pretty much seems to be like a romantic comedy that seems to focus on the relationship between a grown man, a 29-year-old man, and a young girl. From some very ugly Google translation, it kind of makes it sound like this guy ends up with this girl either out of obligation for work or because she's related to one of the higher-ups in his company. I'm not too sure. Feel free, if you are familiar with what this series is all about, to leave that in the comments down below. I just know that it sounds a little sketchy. Anyway, moving right along, at number 5, we have, with 6,481 copies sold, we have Ore no Kanojo to Osananajimi ga Shuraba Sugiru. Or it's also just known as Ore Shura, which is Too Much Mayhem Between My Girlfriend and Childhood Friend, volume number 13. There's no English license for the light novels or the manga. There was a 13-episode anime which ran from January to March in 2013, and it is licensed in English by Aniplex. Eita Kido enters high school with the goal of graduating with marks high enough that he can earn a scholarship to medical school. With this goal in mind and the fact that his parents divorced, found other lovers, and left him in the care of a relative, he shuns anything to do with romance or love. One day, the school beauty, Masuzu Natsukawa, invites him to walk home with her, but he refuses. After several days, he gives in and walks home with her. It turns out that Masuzu is tired of being the center of attention and receiving confessions on a nearly everyday basis. So she suggests that she and Eita become a fake couple. Although Eita tries to refuse, Masuzu blackmails him into becoming her boyfriend in name only. News of the new couple rapidly spreads throughout the school, and Eita's childhood friend, Chiwa Harusaki, who likes him, begins to vie with Masuzu for Eito's affections. So it sounds like a love, comedy, triangle, romance type thing going on. And even though it starts off with the whole, oh, it's only boyfriend, girlfriend in name only, I lay odds it becomes a legit thing, or she develops real feelings for him, and well, it's one of those things. But you know what? Slice of life, comedy, and at least the characters are all like the same age instead of creepy adults with kids. At number 4, with 6,906 copies sold, we have Enkyo Kizuku wa Riso no Slow Life wo Moto Meru, which is roughly translated to Frontier Nobleman Seeks the Ideal Slow Life. No English license for this one, and in fact this looks like it is the first volume of this series, coming in at number 4. A popular piece from Becoming a Novelist, which is the Japanese, it seems to be a pretty popular Japanese writing site. I read more and more, it seems like a lot of light novels that get discovered there. There's like 2 or 3 that it seems a lot of authors post to. This is also the 5th net novel grand prize winner. There you go. Ryuta Kimura, unfortunately, a person who lost his life by being run over by a truck. But fortunately, he becomes blessed in death. God, who met him on the other side, will reincarnate Kimura into his favorite world and will retain his memory as it is. However, Kimura did not want wealth or fame. There was only one thing he wanted. It was a leisurely, abundant life. He is reborn as the 3rd generation of aristocrats who have territory in the frontiers. Now named Kai, he pursues slow life by making full use of cheat magic and his identity as a frontier nobleman. It's an ideal slow life, here now. At number 3, with 7,378 copies sold, we have Saijaku Muhai no Bahamut, volume number 13. It's also known as Undefeated Bahamut Chronicle. The light novels and manga are not licensed in English. However, there was a 12-episode anime adaptation which ran January to March in 2016, and it's licensed in English by Sentai Filmworks. Lux, who was a prince from the empire that was destroyed 5 years ago due to the revolt, met with the princess of the new kingdom, Lisharte, by accidentally breaking into the bathroom of the girls' dormitory. "How long are you planning to stare at my body, you fool?" The ancient weapons found from the ruins, the drag ride. Lux, who was called the strongest drag knight in the past, was now known as the weakest undefeated, a drag knight who doesn't attack at all. After the duel that started by the challenge from Lisharte, Lux ended up entering the girls' school that raised drag knights. Lux's story, where he is surrounded by the noble girls from the academy, is about to unfold. The ultimate academy fantasy battle where the right and the might cross paths now begins. So it sounds kind of like Infinite Stratos to me. Kind of, if I was going to go there. And I'm kind of going there. I think it sounds like Infinite Stratos. So if you like that kind of stuff, harems, one dude who can do something that only girls otherwise can do, stuck with a whole bunch of girls, I think we can all see where this story starts to go. At the number 2 spot, with 16,388 volumes sold, it's volume number 6 of Goblin Slayer. Of course, we do have this one being translated into English, both the manga and the light novel. The light novel's volume number 3 was just released from Yen On. I've reviewed all 3. Really, really like the series, so I'm very happy to see that it's doing well in Japan still. It doesn't really surprise me though, because they've just announced doing a spin-off manga and light novel series called Goblin Slayer, I think Year 1, which is to focus on Goblin Slayer's development before we meet him in the first volume of the light novel. So clearly the series is doing well. With 6 volumes now out, I bet you they start talking about doing an anime. That's my prediction. You can call me on it later, but that is my prediction. Finally, at number 1, the gargantuan continues. 55,194 copies sold. Sword Art Online Volume 20. So, of course, as we've discussed before, the manga, the light novels, the spin-off, progressive, the anime, all available in English. Yen On just released volume number 11. I've got it on my shelf to read and review. So we're still a ways behind. And somebody did say, last week I was saying that I had read that Kawahara was doing something new with Sword Art, but with the article I read hadn't confirmed whether it was in fact a new arc. I just read a comment from somebody that said, yes, they did read an article where they confirmed it is a new arc that he's working on, so a continuation of the Sword Art Online proper series, which ought to be interesting because, again, this is now moving beyond material than what was in the web novel, so nobody knows what it could possibly be, which is both kind of exciting and maybe a little bit scary all at the same time. There is a part of me that kind of wishes, though, like with other series that he still has ongoing that aren't finished, like Excel World. Even a number of people have said that the Isolator series is really good. I thought Volume 1 was, I liked it, but it didn't really grab me. But I know a lot of you have read later volumes and said it gets better. Of course, Sword Art Online Progressive, which pretty much everybody agrees is a really, really good series and tells pretty much the best part of the Sword Art Online story. With all this other stuff going on, I'm slightly disappointed that Kawahara is continuing Sword Art. I'd really rather just see him focus on the other stuff that he's got going on, but, well, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it'll be an amazing story and we'll all be really, really thankful that he continued it. Maybe. We'll see. Or, you know what? Maybe he's really going to freak us all out, and this will be the series where he finally puts to rest that Sword Art and Excel World are entirely connected and plots that whole thing out, and maybe the end of Sword Art will coincide with the end of Excel World, where a big reveal, somehow someone's tied into, yeah. You know, if that happens, you guys saw it here first. Don't forget to tell people, you know, that Justus R. Stone guy called this. I'm probably totally wrong, but if it happens, I called it. I called it. Anyway, those are the top 10 selling light novels in Japan for the week of September 11th to September 17th. Sword Art pretty much demolishing everybody. It'll be interesting to see if it keeps that up next week. I do believe that volume number 12 of My Youth Romantic Comedy Is Wrong As I Expected, which has been long awaited, released just this week. So it won't rank until next week. Well, like my video next week. So it'll be interesting to see how that does, because I know it's a really popular series. I've really enjoyed reading it in English so far, the first 2 volumes. And I know I've seen that there was quite a lot of hype about volume 12 coming out. So it'll be interesting to see how that does on the list next week. So if you're brand new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. I do this countdown every single week, as well as 2 to 3 reviews of light novels every single week. Thank you very much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.